Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crypto City. And now, please welcome to the stage your hosts, CityGirl and PixelAddikt.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto City. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey,
Welcome back,
everybody.
Pixel. We missed you last week.
Yeah, I had some family stuff, so I couldn't be near a computer or my VR headset. I was disappointed, but it happens.
Totally fine. We get it. Last week, if you remember, we had on Nello and we got to learn a little bit about her and her work. It was an interesting journey. If you missed it, don't forget that you can rewatch all of our episodes on our YouTube channel. If you go to our Instagram, there's a link tree, and up at the top, you have all of our socials. And you can rewatch all of our episodes. You can check out our Discord. You can see what's up and coming on the future episodes as well.
Awesome.
So, a couple cool things I saw in the news this week. First of all, Bitcoin increased 25%. So, that's a sign of the
Woohoo!
market maybe shifting a little bit. And
To the
Ethereum
moon.
is, I know, right? It seems like it though, because it's been so down. But Ethereum is back in the top 20 blockchains with 75% of sales. And we know it's tied to Ethereum, a lot of NFTs. So, that's kind of a very positive look for the start of 2023.
Absolutely. No, it can't stay bear market forever, and it's more obviously with the issues, FTX and a couple of the, just in the market being down and projects kind of going away, the NFT being bear. So a lot of people,
Mm.
but it's the utility, it's the the projects, those the development never stopped, right? And now the investments kind of slowly kind of creeping back in, and that's what makes these crypto market flow.
Exactly. And it's interesting too. There was a report that came out earlier this week, and it said that NFTs are more popular on Instagram than they are on Twitter, which does make sense
Wow.
because Instagram finally took that step to allow you to post your NFTs on their platform. So it's a little bit
Right.
different. But Donald Trump NFTs lost 73% of value, and they said it was simply due to lack of interest. And that is a good reminder to everyone that, when you're buying NFTs and you're scooping them up and you're like, this is so great and this is the next best thing, remember that the market is very volatile. So you should be buying NFTs for, the ones that you're comfortable with spending the money on, but also a big piece of it should just be because you want that NFT, because you
Right.
like it, because you enjoy that piece, not necessarily because you think it's going to make you rich or hold its value long term. It might not. Just like everything else, whether it's in the stock market or the crypto market, everything is up and down. So, you buy something, you should buy it because that's what you feel comfortable buying at that time, not because you think that it's going to be the retirement plan that you didn't put together. Agreed?
Well, and yeah, and there's nothing wrong with, trying to quick flip kind of NFTs, right? If that's your thing, if you've got a few, you've got money and you want to play and you want to see which ones I can buy, and that's great. The utility behind it is what's key, right? We see the community, if you build a community behind it, and then offer some utility, offer exclusive access, offer some different content. You got to simply just offer content. If you do that, then you can build people, and it can be, hey, you can be a part of these projects. You can own specific or rare NFTs, and it makes it fun. You got to enjoy it. Otherwise you're just getting into cool stocks. Stocks aren't fun. NFTs are fun.
Right? Nobody ever said the CPA or anybody involved in anything financial was fun.
No, no, it's not fun at all.
Well, tonight we actually have Miggy coming back on. Any of you who've been here before, you know how informative Miggy can be. He's one of our field experts and he has so much knowledge in all the different areas of Web3 and crypto and NFTs. We're very lucky to have him as part of this show. So, everyone, please throw up a warm round of emojis for us to bring Miggy out here. Hey, Miggy.
Hey.
Thank you for
Hey,
joining
what's
us
up,
tonight.
everybody? Thanks for having me. I always appreciate being here. It's definitely a lot of fun, and for now, this is pretty much the most that I get to hang out in VR. So I definitely appreciate every second of it.
Well,
Awesome.
we're lucky to have you. So tonight, you're going to talk to us a little bit about the basics of Web3. We've touched on some different things over the course of the weeks, but it's we don't have the same audience all the time, and we don't always touch on all the different aspects of it. Sometimes we pick one little point and we kind of target that. So tonight, you're gonna give us a more well-rounded aspect of Web3.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to touch on a lot of different subjects. From my most recent experience with people who are entering the space now. A lot of newer people. A lot of the first mentions they're things they're getting into are things like NFTs, like you talked about, cryptocurrencies. And a lot of people really overlook and don't really get a chance to see what drives it. And so my name is Miggy. I go by Miggy Crypto. I've been in the space for about a decade now. I'm not a blockchain developer or a programmer by any means. Everything that I know is based on my experience working with different developers and different people in the space, and getting to know and work on different blockchains. And so it's important that I think, especially in times like this, where we take a step back and we really look at, what the driving force is behind all these cool things like cryptocurrencies and NFTs. I currently work for a game studio, and we're building a game called Altera. It'll be a primarily traditionally Web 2 game, but we're going to have features of Web 3, which will include the blockchain, cryptocurrency, and also NFTs. But for us, the blockchain is a very important aspect of gaming, and just in Web 3 in general. That really is what enables all these things to happen. And so I stole a little bit of a slide for everybody to check out. You can't really see it. We do have it in the Discord, so I'm just using it for reference, just so that way we could talk about things.
Hmm.
So to kind of go back to, I'm sorry, do you want to say something?
No, we will put it in the Discord, so don't worry if you can't read it. We'll put it in the Discord for you right after the show.
Thank you. So like I was saying, the blockchain is kind of the driving force behind Web 3. And what the blockchain is a decentralized ledger system that is powered with AI technology and algorithmic math. So, in a simple way, it's a way of keeping track of information using methods, beyond just humans, and keeping it automated in a way to where, it's a process with math. And so, what it can easily relate to is like, your bank account. What banks are pretty much just hold your money using a ledger system, except, those ledger systems, your accounts, they're only visible to yourselves. Bank gets to see everybody's information. They get to know all the transactions that are being made and all the things that are taking place. But you only get to see yours. And so with the blockchain, it's very much the same thing. It's a way to distribute and take down a lot of information and put it on a ledger system. Except with blockchain technology, they use a method of encryption called cryptography to take that information and secure it, so that way it's both public and transparent. Um, Makes it so that way everybody has access to this information, and the way that they use to kind of control it is basically through a way of consensus. um, so unlike banks, right now they have a lot of control over your transactional information for what you do, and that information can be passed along to different corporations and different entities. And what blockchain offers is a way to kind of take that information and secure it in your own way. And for us right now, the way that we know that it works is with cryptocurrencies and NFTs. Um, Sorry if anybody has any questions. I know that's kind of like a bit of information just right there to start with.
What we're going to do tonight, because Miggy's going to go over a lot of different things, is we're actually going to put up the raise hand feature. And if you have questions as we're going along, feel free to hit the raise hand feature button, and we'll see that you've raised your hand, and we can take a quick pause so that you can ask a question and Miggy can answer as we go along. That way we don't get too far ahead and you'll forget your question by the end. So if you have any questions, just put up your raise hand and we'll take a quick pause and we'll let you ask your question and maybe can answer. Go ahead.
Thank you. And so to kind of go back, to the beginning of blockchain, what the slide back here we'll talk about is that the blockchain was invented by a pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto, and it was created primarily for the use of transactions and spending, power Bitcoin, so that way you weren't able to double spend. And so what that blockchain does is transact information of financial information. It keeps track of how much Bitcoin there is in circulation, who has Bitcoin in their digital accounts, which is called digital wallets, and also where that Bitcoin is going. And so this information is public. Everybody has access to it. And the idea is with that sort of information, even though you can't tie it to a specific identity, it is important to know what things are happening, and because that way you could basically know that what's happening is true. And so the way that they go through this, is by a method of different consensus mechanisms, which we'll kind of touch in the future. But a couple different things that you can do with the blockchain is payment processing, which is what Bitcoin offers. It allows you to move money around and keep track of information. So you can go to the next slide. I totally forgot that I was supposed to tell you. Thank you. Also for monitoring supply chains. And so when you think about, when you're driving, you see a lot of 18-wheelers moving around, stores like Walmart, Target, all these big restaurants and chains, they have inventory being driven around the country. One big problem which raises costs, which at the end affects us as consumers, is inventory being misplaced, being mishandled, stolen property, things like that. Basically, they don't have a really good way to keep a very accurate account of the things that they have and what they're doing with them, where they're being distributed, how many are being handled, how many may have been lost, broken, stolen, etc. And so one thing that blockchain can enable with that is to help distribute that information, very similar to how it does with the financial. It can keep a track of the supply, the inventory, where it's going, when it's going there, and also, when things are misplaced or, broken, stolen, etc. And what that could do in the future is help reduce costs. When you can keep an accurate account of the things that you have in your business, you can save money. And so even with restaurants, that's a big problem. I was a server and a bartender for about 18 years. And, one thing that we always had to deal with was food costs. We would get hammered down by the management about, you know, using the exact portions, not substituting for things that were higher costs without charging, um, and then not eating food, that wasn't accounted for, things like that. And then, mess ups from the servers, from the cooks, sendbacks from your customers. Um, and you have to imagine that a portion of that doesn't get accounted for, doesn't go into the books. So as far as the numbers are concerned, with most restaurants, it's just wash because they account for so much that is unknown, and they put that into their books. But a lot of that time, even some of that gets looked over, and so there's a lot of industries where inventory is being mishandled and misrepresented because of human error and human ability to make a mistake. So with blockchain technology, you can automate a lot of that information and use processes that can keep track of that pretty accurately and autonomously, so that way you're minimizing the human error. And again, which things like that would affect us in the long run as far as our as cost as consumers to buy things. Also for digital IDs, things like your driver's license, your birth certificate. There was a situation in Colorado where I went to a conference out there, and they were, looking to go to digital ID just because there was a lot of reasons as far as like costs of printing these IDs and having to keep hold of them. Also, fraudulent IDs being made, stuff like that. That they were turning to these digital IDs. The problem, that they were having was that they didn't really have a way to prove that they weren't, being digitally falsified. Well, the blockchain comes around and enables things like that to have a level of security that is unmatched because of how these blockchains operate using the cryptology. And so you have a way that you could take documents like that and have secure digital twins of them that you can use, that you don't have to worry about losing. I have to order my birth certificate, I don't know how many times, because I always end up losing it. And when you're talking about having to go to jobs and stuff like that, like, it's important to keep track of these things because physically it's easy to lose track of them. And like I said, for me, it was terrible. Like I've probably ordered like 3 birth certificates just because as I move and things change, or I'll have a job for years, so things like my credit card, stuff like get put away, and then maybe it just gets lost because all my stuff just gets kind of stuffed in a closet of some sort, and then years later I'm going to do another job and like, oh man, I need multiple forms of ID. You go look for this, and I'm like, oh, I don't even know where it's at, or maybe it got destroyed in the water, fires, or who knows. If I had digital forms of these, secured on the blockchain, not only could I prove that these were, my identities, the blockchain would have a way to certify that these are in fact government documents.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
one way that I
another.
like to. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to jump in and say and back that up with the thing with ID in the blockchain is, when we go to the bar or something, we give the bouncer our driver's license. He doesn't need to know where I live. He just needs to know that I'm over 21 or 19 kind of here in Canada. So like some of that data, some of that should be obfuscated, right? Should be hidden behind some sort of DAP or some sort of ID where you don't have to give all the ID. Right. And that's the thing, is that when we buy these transactions online, so cryptography and that kind of hides some of that. It's that proof, right? Those zero knowledge proofs. And we're not going to get into like all deep blockchain tech, but Miggy knows that like that's why it's so secure, so that you can only give the data that you're comfortable with. It's our data. We should be able to protect it and
Should be able to
share
have
it
that
as we.
privacy.
Absolutely, for sure. Anyway, that was my 2 cents.
No, and that was great. I appreciate it. That was absolutely, 100% right. And that's a big deal with why a lot of these things, as he mentioned, there's certain information that, we should be able to give really on our own accord. There's certain information that, we should have to give, but it have to be tied to so much other stuff. And not only being able to secure things on the blockchain, but also encrypt it in a way to where only the relevant information is available. So you reduce the risk of that being stolen or sold. As we noticed, like with these stores, I mean, Target's had several issues. The name just as a big market store that people use all the time, where they've been caught selling information to third parties who want to solicit to you, which most of the time it's for advertising purposes, but oftentimes it ends up on the dark web or ends up in otherwhere where people can actually get a hold of your bank account information, your credit card informations, through these intermediaries and these other methods. And having the blockchain, to help really streamline and secure that is important, because, not just with financial information, it can do that with the IDs. And now with NFTs, it makes it even more possible, because then we do absolutely have to have a photo. We can secure a digital photo, hasn't been tampered with, hasn't been altered, and has a certification of the blockchain, say that, hey, this is my photo, this is who I am, this is all you need. You know, you don't need all this other irrelevant information. And so one way you could really kind of describe, the blockchain, which was an idea that has been around, with cryptology for a while, is that it's basically like a digital notary. If you know if you've ever notarized anything, what you do is you go to a bank or you go to some notary office and you have some type of certificate that you to have a stamp of saying, hey, this certificate is true. All this information on here is 100% updated, 100% fact, and this is certified through somebody who's highly credible, and that you're not going to go against their word, I guess, in a sense, especially for like government documents or legal documents, business documents. And so you go there, you have to schedule an appointment, or sometimes, most banks do it for free, but sometimes, you pay somebody to do it depending on the level of the documents you have to deal with. But oftentimes, you have to go to a physical place. You have to take your body, take stacks of paper, and then go to this place to meet this person, where they read through the documents. Sometimes you need another person to meet you there because you both have to be present for the notary to prove that both of you read the document, and then bam, they stamp it with their certification stamp, and that's it. That's all it is. It's just that stamp right there is enough to say that, hey, this is an official document. It's, top level, whatever it may be, but this is certified by this person that says this is credible. And, in most cases, you have people who could fraudulently do that. You have people who may not even adhere to their own laws as a notary and just help a friend out. These little issues that, again, human error comes into play. And not to mention, you have to waste a lot of time going to these places, scheduling these appointments. So blockchain was essentially created because it's the digital version of that. It's the digital way to certify something online that has a digital timestamp, because it records information, and encrypts it in a way that it cannot be manipulated. And once that information is set, you can't go back and change it because of the cryptology. And that requires a little bit more detail and information that is definitely not my field. But they use this way to secure it. And the basic level, it's a lot of algorithms. They use math, essentially, algorithms to secure this and encrypt information, hide it. And so what's great about that, again, is that saving time can save money. Reducing human error can save time, can save money. And it just helps put a lot of control into people's hands, because anybody can have access to this. Anybody can use it. Anybody can participate in it. And so blockchain, has a lot of other, thank you for changing the slide, has a lot of the things that can be done with it. Again, the digital certification has, really changed things, especially when you talk about NFTs and cryptocurrencies. Those are just a couple of examples that we've got to see, in play right now, that people know about. In the future, we'll hopefully have more implementation of this. Um, Copyright, royalties protection. Again, that's something that you hear about with NFTs. It's a way to stamp that, hey, this was created by this person. And with the ability to create smart contracts on the blockchain, which is essentially just execution programs that are automated using this secure ledger system. You can build in these royalties and not have to worry about somebody in another far off country where you have no access or no connection in, copywriting your stuff, and have no way to know it unless you're physically there, or somebody tells you, or you just happen to find out. Let's say with music, for an example. But as businesses and other ways, like the way that I have a friend who works in patent law, and he says the way that patents work is that when you create a patent, all that information becomes public. You may own it, but that information is public for people to see. And so Coca-Cola does not have their Coca-Cola recipe in a patent. So so technically, somebody could patent Coca-Cola's recipe. If you knew what it was, you could patent it yourself, because they
I
have
hate
it,
patents.
because they don't they don't want people to see their recipe. And so one cool thing with the blockchain and NFTs and this ability to use this this cryptology is that cryptography, I'm sorry, is you can create a digital patent, hide the information that is in the patent, so you can still meet all the requirements necessary. The actual information that is public for people to see, is encrypted. And so that would enable a company like Coca-Cola to secure in their right to own their recipe, and not have anybody steal that recipe, because nobody will ever know it. They'll just know that Coca-Cola owns it. And so if anybody happens to find it, by chance, it's Coca-Cola's. And also, now the Internet of Things, the network management, that's something that I honestly don't know very much about, but I've seen projects coming out that are trying to provide a solution to internet services. So they're releasing their own broadband internet, and they're enabling you to, with the blockchain, um, mine cryptocurrencies while as you distribute wireless service through their servers. And so it's a bit more complex than I really know about, because I'm not much of a network person or data management, but they're using blockchain to be able to create secure Wi-Fi that individuals can participate in enhancing the network. It's not just a big company that owns it. All of us could buy, these servers, these Wi-Fi distributors, and the more you put out, the more that people use this internet that is decentralized. That everybody has access to. You're able to earn, tokens, which I imagine one day, they if they ever become a value, could be used as a currency or methods of, trading for something else. But again, I don't really know too much about, details of these projects, but I have seen them come around because I have a lot of friends who are like, "Hey, we're like, I think Chia is one of them. Like, we're mining Chia, and like all you have to do is like, order these servers, these Wi-Fi servers, and you get your own internet basically." And so it's like, imagine all the issues you have with your internet providers if you have, costs or, getting all the maintenance of the boxes and all the things, it could be a hassle dealing with that kind of stuff and expensive. They're not making it cheap or easy to get access to the internet, to being online. And few and fewer companies, are out there. Um, and so, with this ability to like, hey, you have more control over the internet you use because it's distributed through this, this router that you control. And the more people that participate, the more that you can enable its blockchain and earn these tokens. And, you also get the internet. But those are things that like, I don't know how long it'll be till I figure it out because um, but kind of going back, to the blockchain and like, the ability for information to be transferred and saved and secured is, healthcare systems. And for me, that kind of falls in line with similar to like the supply line. Is that with the healthcare, you have a lot of information being documented on papers and files, and stuff can get lost. Updates can be missed. There are stories at hospitals that where people their information gets switched, and so somebody receives the wrong procedure. These are things that really happen in today in 2023. And so it's a very archaic method. And even with the I've known a couple people who work in the healthcare as far as like working in hospitals to help facilitate the information, administrative work. And it's a lot, because it's so there's a lot of human accountability. And as I mentioned earlier, human error with this kind of stuff is when you're talking about important documents, that's something that should be out of human hands. If it can be automated and it can be made secure and transparent, that way everybody has, equal access to this information and a way to distribute it. We should. And so that's one thing that, like, again, with the healthcare system, all of this can reduce time, because it saves time being wasted, files that are being lost, information that's not being updated or needs to be changed, but also could help people too who are getting, fixed procedures or going through things like, sometimes it costs people's lives for this information to be, mishandled. And again, it's all human error. There's no computer really to blame. And even
Wow.
the servers that they use is still, well, actually, you probably could blame their servers because from
It's
what I
legacy.
understand, yeah,
Yeah, they're
like they
they're
have
all
trouble with
legacy
that.
systems. Yeah, but it's for a reason, right? Because we're just moving too quick, and those industries can't keep up with the constant innovation, and it's the middlemen. It's all the companies in the middle that are trying to
Yeah,
store all this data and keep all that secure. It's health data. It's not just,
right.
people's kind of spending habits. So it's a lot more, and it's harder for them to constantly keep up with the hackers that are hacking systems. And I think they're scared. I hear you. I know they want to move to blockchain kind of enabled systems, but I think they're far behind. I think they've got to start building. They're siloing a lot of the databases and kind of everything. They're not, like you said, they're not upgrading the tech at all or their infrastructure, right? So, but it's coming. It's there.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's there, and the good thing is that, like, all of this is progressive, right? A lot of people are just now hearing about blockchain for the first time because they just heard about NFTs or you've heard about Bitcoin. And, you kind of look at like, well, what makes Bitcoin work? Like, why is Bitcoin legitimate? Why is it not a scam? And it's because the blockchain, is the ability to secure this information and distribute it. Hear the words like decentralization. You know, decentralization of information, all that means is that one entity or person or group doesn't control the information. And you can have different ways to decentralize that information. And with blockchain, you have a couple options. And, that's probably a little bit more detailed talk because, then you talk about how DAOs are set up and things like that, and nodes and all this
We can
technical
do another
jargon.
show on that.
No, that's definitely
Well,
not mine. That's a little bit technical for me.
Well, and I want to
Um,
ask you, like I have my own opinion or kind of knowledge on like why do you think that Bitcoin can't get hacked? Like, explain in your own words why can't we hack Bitcoin? Like, everybody's got their own answer. I kind of want to see, like, it's blockchain, but let's
right.
explain to everybody why it hasn't been hacked yet over years and years since 2009. It hasn't been hacked, and there's a reason.
Honestly, it's gonna be hard for me to kind of simple it down. So the way that I understand it is that, with the blockchain, the way that it encrypts its information is that it makes copies of that information. Let's say like you're like again with the bank, your bank account. Imagine if you had multiple copies of that bank account, around the world, and you were able to. This is probably a bad example. um, Honestly, it might be a bit hard to explain because the hash rate, and the way that it can encrypt the information. It encrypts the information and it puts it what's called a block. And in this block is going to have all the data information of Bitcoin. How much is in the total supply, how much is being sent or received. Um, Now, whenever a new set of information is produced or another block, they take the information from that previous one, let's call it block A. All the information from block A goes into block B. And then the new information from block B gets recorded to that same ledger system. And from what I understand is that to hack into Bitcoin, you essentially have to change these blocks of information to fit, whatever number you're trying to make it or whatever information you're trying to do.
Yep.
And with
There you go.
with the way Bitcoin puts this information is that there's so many blocks. Once you say you have 3 blocks, in order to corrupt the information from the first block, you have to change the information from all 3 blocks. Now imagine millions of blocks, and so you have to change the information for every single block so that way you can reach the initial one that you're trying to manipulate. The problem again with that is this encryption where there's things that are going on mathematically where you have to, work through that, and like that's more technical than I can really can even
No, man, listen, man, that's what
explain.
I was. Listen, I know a lot of people, and a lot of people cannot explain what you just basically said, right? And that's kind of how these blockchains work. And another thing is the 5150. Everyone's like, what does that mean? It's the hash power. It means that you have to take control of the Bitcoin network, that you have to pay so much money to be able to, like you said, rewrite the whole history. The problem is that you're going to spend billions and billions of dollars, but you're only going to be able to do that for 12 minutes. Because in the
Yeah.
next 12 minutes, they're going to fork the Bitcoin chain and they're going to rewrite the whole from the old chain. So nobody can hack it. You just can't afford to, and you don't have enough power. It's decentralized. You don't have enough hash power to be able to overthrow it. And that was the genius of, the blockchain itself, like the proof of work. That's why proof of
Yeah.
work will never leave. Everybody's like, oh, it's proof of stake. That's great, but this is the original. This is the OG.
Now I thought of a good anecdote, that makes it easy to kind of understand. So as like throughout time, what did humans do when we had very important information we didn't want, be coerced or changed? Well, back then they chiseled it in stone. If it was important enough to remember, they carved it out of stone. Into which now, thousands of years later, that information is still in that stone. And if any of that information was changed or erased or whatever, it there's proof. You could see it, that it's been changed or erased. And so the way that I like to imagine is kind of similar with the blockchain. The blockchain is that kind of digital stone where it's like this important for at the its point, like same with trying to erase information on a stone, like that's not an easy task. That's kind of similar to blockchain. That information is being stored in a very secure way that
Mhm.
it'll be hard to corrupt it, without, the 51% mechanisms. And now that we're this far into it, with Bitcoin specifically, not to say this about any other blockchains, but they all work in the
Sure.
same fashion. Just Bitcoin has the longest history of information.
Yeah.
It's chiseled more stone, and so you have to change every stone tablet and mark every single one out just get there. And there's so many that it's there's not enough computing power to do that. But that's what I like about the blockchain. Is that what it reminds me of? Is that when we had really important information, we put it in stone because we knew that it was going to last for, I mean, mostly forever, as far as we know. Like it's still here in some aspects. Talk about hieroglyphics and Egypt and all these things like that. And so the blockchain is our stone. That's our way to secure information and data for years to come. That way, everybody has access to it. Nobody, at least now, it's nobody can hoard it, can manipulate it. It
Exactly. Yeah.
can be forever. Um, and so thank you for changing the slide again. And so, with businesses, I think we've covered a lot of things where, like, just even knowing how and why the blockchain operates, you can understand why business can benefit from this. Because, yes, this is a good thing for people to use individually. And the great thing is everybody has access to it. But the truth is, most of us won't really, like, we're going to use it, but we're not going to really need to know we're using it. So that's going to fall in the hands of these businesses. Like, this is where it's really going to apply because works better for businesses, and the fact that it'll work better for them is a benefit to us because we'll be on the end of that, that line of technology where we'll reap the benefits of them being benefited. This will be a true trickle down effect. We've heard it, I mean, for me, all my life, that our economy is a trickle down economy. But as many of you may notice, and a lot of you who actually want to learn about Bitcoin and you'll understand that the trickle down economy does not exist by any means. So with the blockchain, that can change because this information can be distributed this way. And so businesses can benefit greatly by saving themselves time, through the ability to secure their information, to automate it, I mean, it may suck that some companies will reduce their human employees because of these automation capabilities, but again, at the end of the day, if it can save in costs, maybe that can change things where the overall economy costs can be lowered, where rent's not so high, food's not so expensive, and there are other, create other avenues for those people to explore, or maybe do something that is more suitable for themselves. Maybe that suits their creative needs or whatever. Being able to pursue something that they really enjoy,
Absolutely.
instead of doing
That
these
creator,
tasks.
yeah,
Go
that
ahead.
creator economy, you keep on talking that Web3, like taking control of what you're good at and selling goods and services and if you do it on the blockchain, then you're proving your identity, you're proving you're kind of authoritative, and that it's less likely, especially if you build a community around it, you're, like you said, you're proving it. So good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can go to the next slide before I start that, I mean, if there's any questions, definitely feel free. Oh wait, you said the hand thing, right? I totally just
Yeah, the
registered.
hand thing's up. I haven't seen any questions come through. I actually, just from getting your opinion on something, we talk about it. You've mentioned, that there's so many things that are not on blockchain technology, but that would benefit from it. Do you see you even talked about like credit cards and things like that. Do you see a shift coming that, in the maybe not tomorrow, but like in the very near future, do you see all these, corporations that are not on blockchain technology shifting over to it, whether it is in the health industry or in the financial industry?
Honestly, what I've seen just in this past, 6 to 8 months with all this disruption going on in the crypto space, with the overall market, tanking with things like FTX and all this craziness. I think with the market being down, it's really given companies time to really take a look at, what actually is valuable here, and I
Mhm.
think a lot of us were focused so hard in on cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, the market, trading, making money, investing in crypto, hodling, all these concepts
Mm.
are NFTs, buying these ridiculous or funny or great, JPEGs, videos, songs, whatever it was, like just buying things in the hopes of making a lot of money and flipping it, which, you know, a lot was not necessarily a bad thing, to want to make money and to make money in this industry. I think the focus was, really overlooked blockchain technology itself because even as the market tanks, the values,
Mm.
really dropped. A lot of people became disheartened about Web3, or they decided like, oh, hey, what, I'm gonna take a step out of this. The thing is, like, yes, even though the dollar signs might have gone down, technology didn't stop working. The
Good point.
blockchain still
Agreed.
executing, smart
Mhm.
contracts were still, happening. These dApps were still working.
Mhm.
Granted, Solana may have maybe having their issues as a newer network, but overall, all these networks have had no downtime and they're operating just fine. And that's the thing, is that's where the value is. The dollar is a very
Foundation.
conflated thing. Yeah, and it's a small part of what the whole Web3 has to offer. And at some point, I think when we shift from further into Web3, that there won't really be dollar signs. It'll just be, whatever the crypto amount is versus the other
Mhm.
crypto you're trading it with or projects or whatever. But I think there is a shift just because of that. Like it's changed people's focus because all this bad stuff's been happening. You see all this craziness in the news, all this
Mhm.
negativity. And so for those who really want to who are really here to participate and really believe in the future of Web3, I think it's given them the chance to really see what's valuable. Like what is it that makes this valuable? And that is the blockchain. Being able
Hey,
to do
for
I
this with
agree
good,
with that.
information.
yeah,
Oh yeah, go
good
ahead.
or
Sorry.
bad, good or bad, the founder of Ethereum there, Vitalik Buterin, we always look at him and he's like, don't look at the price. I don't care about the price. Why would I care about the price of something? Trying to develop an ecosystem and all these, like, so if you look at people like that, instead of, just scammy people with different blockchains and their own tokens and their own, what are you doing? You can have your own blockchain. That's fine. You're in an industry, you're in gaming, you're into a specific, that's fine. But don't create a chain and just have the same thing to create tokens with no utility. The SEC is going to get you. The regulations are going
Mhm.
to get you. So I love that we really talk about the importance of doing your research, understanding
Mhm.
safety, understanding the value of Web3 and the value of these blockchain assets that are just crazy tech that we all love, but you got to go in with a clear head. You got to be smart.
Agreed.
You gotta
Mhm.
it's gotta be safe, right?
Um,
And I do agree with you on
Absolutely.
the, it's more about the actual functionality and what it's doing, because and me personally, I mean, I've talked about this on a previous show that, I chose to put my investments in at the base of blockchain versus further out at the other end of things that it's producing, is because I believe that in it as a foundation of how everything else is growing out of it. So I'd rather, you know, put my efforts into that.
No, absolutely. And like I said, we've only seen just a small bit of it. Bitcoin has been best innovation by far, to come out of the blockchain. And then now NFTs have really shown us that we could really do a lot. There's a lot we can do now, even more so
Mhm.
with the ability to take actual digital images and files and put those on the blockchain. Before NFTs really were enabled like this, we couldn't do that. We could only encrypt the information into the blockchain and have it be distributed through a what we know as tokens, cryptocurrency. But a lot of these projects that were developed, these coins, even though they had dollar value, weren't made for those things. Bitcoin, Litecoin, there are a few ones that are actual cryptocurrencies. The others, had purpose because they were helping to distribute this information, maintain this blockchain network and, this ability to run this ledger system. And so,
And
uh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I'm just saying there were so many at the start. Like you remember a few years ago, it was so hard to be able to disseminate what's good, what's bad, what's valuable. So you had to use blockchain as that base, and then Ethereum. Ethereum with the smart contracts opened all that up, and that's how you're able to have all these new types of chains, and like your Polygon, right? And that blew up,
Mhm.
and now you're seeing these second layers that are doing so much better. Like you have Arbitrum and other ones that are doing way better than some of these layer ones, and it's great to see, right? So, like you said, innovation, development, community, and utility. You have to build something worthwhile, otherwise, it's just for token stuff.
No, absolutely. And community part, I think that is the most important aspect of it. I think what we're really seeing is what as valuable is the ability to group together, make decisions, choose where we invest our resources, our time, our energy, by going into these different groups, whether they speak to you because of the profile pictures or animations they're using, or because you want to make money, or the people are really cool, or your buddy pulled you in. It's just what really makes us all work is that now as communities we have the ability to um, operate in our own systems using blockchain, using big cryptocurrency and NFTs, because this is
Mm.
open for everybody, not just the corporations, but us too. And so now we have more choice in a time and world where we didn't actually really get a lot of choice. You have forced options in a sense, but with Web3 and the ability to secure this information and secure how you distribute it, and then also decide on what you attach to this information that you're distributing, um, is very empowering. As we know, like information is the most valuable currency that exists. It's very valuable, so much so that countries go out of their way to, for lots thousands of years, when you'd pillage and plunder, you would go and destroy all the information of the town you took over. And there was a reason. It wasn't just because just so it was to kill that country, kill that group, whatever it was, make sure that nobody remembered who they were, so that way you could control the narrative. From henceforth, you can control what people know. And back then, that information not very many people were able to read and stuff and write, but you know information was deliberately destroyed. And you can imagine now it's not destroyed; it's more hoarded and taken and sold, and a lot of maliciousness is happening behind the scenes with information. um and it's crazy. And so with blockchain, we could change that, and we have the choice to, there, whoever Satoshi Nakamoto was, enabled this. And with Bitcoin specifically, it's something that won't go away, and we'll always be able to learn from it. This information is open source, and so information, being able to control, move it, secure it, is very valuable from the individual to the corporation, and everybody gets to participate. Um, and I'm gonna kind of leave these last slides just for y'all to check out. They just kind of go through some of the, for this one, it goes to the 4 keys of blockchain, which we kind of mentioned. The shared system. That's something actually I don't think we really honed in on. We talked about the ledger being public, but shared ledger system. One thing that is really the key about blockchain is the fact that this information is secured, it is transparent, but it's also distributed. So that means people who are participating in helping this network run all get a copy of this ledger system. And so everybody has access to see it, but those who are helping this network being maintained get a copy of it to validate it. And so you have basically more than one person, more than one computer system gets a copy of this information, and they get it validated as true. And that each individual gets to validate that same information. And as long as everybody says that their information is true, these transactions get to take place. So you have multiple eyes. Well, in a sense, these are done with algorithms. These aren't actually people approving, but you have multiple systems that are proving, verifying truth of this ledger system. So this shared ledger is what really is the driving force. That not only do you have everybody can look at it, but everybody can verify it. You can look and be like, oh, hey, this information is true. And with Bitcoin specifically, that's done through their system of mining. So essentially, mining, all it is a way to verify this information using computers, and the reward is you get little bits of Bitcoin for doing that. But it's all mathematical. So you have a mathematical checks and balances in a sense, and it's not just one system that does it; it's multiple systems. So if one system says that the information is not true, that information does not transact. That information does not move forward. The Bitcoin is not sent, or the NFT is not sent, or whatever that happens, it doesn't happen because if one computer says it's not true, none of it's true. And that's the great thing about it, is that everything has to be mathematically true for it to be enabled, and you have anybody can participate in that as well. It's not just, again, companies. Any individual, you can learn about mining, you can set up a computer, participate in these networks to validate this information.
Have you ever ran a node, Miggy?
I've messed around a little bit, nothing major.
I
learned about pools and stuff, but no, I never really got into it until it was too late and it was too expensive. For nodes, like, okay, I've had friends who've given me nodes, like, I had the AVAX node for a little bit, a couple other ones, but it was real, like, not as complicated as as it was in the beginning, but I don't mess with that right now. It's
crazy. Yeah, before, like in 2012, literally 2012, friends of ours like, hey, should we get this software? Should we run big? Like, and the price was, I don't know, maybe $1,000, maybe $800. And it's like, you can mine, you can, now it's crazy. You can't now. It's the hardware would be very expensive. You can, but there's obviously other cryptocurrencies that people are interested in mining or kind of generating or kind of looking to involve themselves in the community. It's fun. It's definitely a wormhole you can go down, a rabbit hole, and fun.
Do you have a question from the audience? Zaid actually had a question.
Awesome.
He typed it here, but I might have him go on AMP to talk about it as well. He said, what will happen to Bitcoin, as an example, after it reaches the mining limit? So it's going to happen when it reaches its max.
So basically, the way that it works now, to try to keep it as simple as possible, if you imagine, those of you who know how money's printed, basically have an endless supply. The Federal Reserve can print as much dollar bills as they like. There's no limit or cap. So with Bitcoin, the mining process is essentially, you can consider it digital printing. It's called minting, but you can imagine digital printing. And there is a cap on the supply. And so with Bitcoin, you can only create 21 million. It's the most Bitcoins that will ever be distributed. And so there is a process that affects how much of that distribution happens. Every 4 years, there's less Bitcoin distributed out into the world, and that exponentially decreases because there's less and less distributed every 4 years. And so the way that it works, because of that system, is that over the course of the next 100 years, we'll have Bitcoin being distributed. As long as we are human beings on this planet participating with internet activity and electronics. So imagine 100 years from now, when that last Bitcoin is minted, there won't really be need to. I want to say there won't really need to be a need to mine, but I know they'll be switching to nodes, but there won't be any more. Like, the only thing that's going to happen is that no more Bitcoin is going to come out. That's it.
So whatever's in circulation is in circulation.
Yeah, like, you won't be able to mine it from a computer anymore. You'll only be able to buy it from somebody or from an exchange, or get paid in it. But as far as the technical stuff, like, nothing's really going to happen technically. It's just going to be no more Bitcoins are going to come out. And so the way that the mining process is going to work, I imagine, would change, because it'd be more node distribution rather than actual computer hardware, more like network type stuff. But as now a speculation as far as like what the world's going to be like or what's going to happen then is honestly, I wouldn't even know how to imagine that
We don't know
because
what's going to happen tomorrow.
yeah, what we're talking about 100 years from now, the last Bitcoin will be
Right.
mined. Nobody will be able to access it as far as like mining it on a computer. And you'll just have to participate in it somehow as far as like getting paid in it or
Well,
buying
and
it
everyone's
from
got to
people.
remember that like there's 9 decimal points that you can buy. Like we can buy $1 now and we can have a penny, but imagine having 9 decimal points to break all that Bitcoin down so that they're all Satoshis, right? They're all small little fractions of all, so everybody can have, you can buy $5 worth of Bitcoin, and just accumulate it, right? Just like kind of.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's not a great answer,
Do you
but
have
it's
any
just
other questions?
so far from now. It's hard to really say. Just the technical level, it's like nothing really
It's
will
a
happen.
factual answer.
But thanks for the question.
Do we have any other
So I
questions
guess
from anyone?
sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
So for the other 3 points, this is the 4 key concepts. We have the shared ledger, permissions. We kind of touched on as far as like with the also smart contracts and consensus. So with the permissions, essentially that's just would say that's more in the realm of like when you get into actual smart contract engagements or like DAO participation, because ideally what we have is like a permissionless system where you don't have to ask anybody to use it or do these things. You just participate, in the system that's created. Nobody can deny you from it as long as you participate, by the whatever rules or delegations they have. So let's say you want to participate in Web3 websites, you have to have a wallet, you know? You don't have to have anybody's permission to go get a wallet. Nobody's going to stop you from getting a wallet. You don't have to ask anyone. But if you need one to get into this website, that's how you log in. That's how you secure information. You don't have to do it. Nobody's forcing you. Again, you don't have to ask permission either. You could just go get a wallet and now you have access. So, that's like the most basic level. Then you have like DAO systems where, people just participate by voting. There's no really like things where you have to have these features of permission. It's just all about participation. And with smart contracts, that applies a little bit more towards like NFTs, and that's pretty much the driving force that now enables the NFT is that you have these blockchains that can engage, with these algorithms, these equations that allow you to, move images and files and create royalty systems. And the smart contracts, as far as I believe, they work with the blockchain. They're not necessarily in it, like a layer of it. They work on top of the blockchains, and the blockchain basically speaks to the contract, and then the contract is engaged, and that's how when you're buying an NFT, you're activating a smart contract. You're engaging with the system that says, "Hey, they're going to send me Bitcoin, or let's say Ethereum, or this Bored Ape." So the smart contract is that in math. It's just saying that, hey, when I receive an Ethereum, I will send, the Bored Ape to the sending address. And, all that's automated through math is basically, A plus B equals C. And as long as those functions operate, that's all it is. And so smart contracts have enabled a lot because, again, you can imagine with blockchain, secured information that's transparent, decentralized, distributed, and then now you have the ability to engage with with other algorithms that can a little bit more securely. Like there's a lot you can do with that information now. And then we go back to the consensus, which you kind of touched on earlier. That is done through the mining processes, through the nodes. It's done through these computers, these systems that exist all around the world who are receiving the same information and verifying that that information is true. And can be done at the individual level, can be done at the corporate level. Um, that's ideally, to sum it up is just handling your information being able to distribute it, can apply to a lot of different industries. It can enable a lot of savings, time, energy. Me specifically, we're using it for games because, like we mentioned before, we could securely take our gamers' information on our blockchain, that's happening in the game, and encrypt it to where that information doesn't have to be out in the world or nobody can get access to it if we don't want them to. Or we can give them access, but they're not tied to their unique Ds, as far as like you don't know if that is a male, a female, an adult, a teenager. You just know, hey, this is a gamer kicking butt and this is their score, this is their NFT or whatever. But a lot of cool things that you could do with it. Definitely something to look into if you're ever if you're new to Web3, you have a new friend. Kind of look at the blockchain. Look at what can be done with it. You don't have to be a programmer or developer. You don't have to really look into the intricacies of the technical side of it. Just like we did today, you just kind of got to see what possibilities it can be used for, and then from there you can imagine, what can be done. And if you are a technical person, then be my guest and dive right in. I think that's
Thank you
it.
so much. I mean, there's a lot of information. You explained it in such a great way so that we could understand it. We will put these slides up on the Discord like we talked about, but this was really great to have you break it down into a lot more understandable terms. It's kind of funny listening to some of the things that you said on there about, you keep referring back to math and algorithms and all this stuff. Now we finally know all those classes that you took in school where you're like, I'll never use this math as long as I live. Well, this is where it's being used. It's being used in the
Right.
back end by people maybe it's being used. It's just not stuff that we ever really thought was going to be useful. And now it's running an entire ecosystem. So
Yeah, and
Yeah,
another
and it's
point is
interesting.
oh, sorry. It was
Oh, go
Miggy
ahead.
explaining things and breaking down like the metaphors and using analogies and kind of doing all that. That's important. So like we really preach that you have to know your, the terms, right? The glossary terms of all this crypto and blockchain. Everyone's got to make sure that you know what you're talking about and learn it properly from the base. You can tell that there's levels to this, right? Everybody speaks that different, and being able to explain this complicated tech very basically to
absolutely.
just friends and family and other like on these podcasts, it's important because it can get complicated. And he kept on saying cryptology. And in my mind I'm like, it's not cryptology, it's
I know
cryptography. And then I went
cryptography.
and
Oh
googled
my
it.
gosh.
I googled it, and you're right, there is a word called cryptology. It's the science of analyzing these codes and these things. And cryptography
It's so
is
funny.
the development of the creation of them. And I'm like, see, I learned a new word.
You learned
I
a
love
new
it.
word. Well, we've learned a lot tonight. We really appreciate you coming on to share this with us. Miggy's going to be on with us like once a month, and this is his third time coming on. We've learned a lot. We'll be looking forward to you coming back to us next month with another new topic to go over. If for any of you who might be interested in learning more with Miggy, you can follow him on Twitter or Instagram. It's on Miggy Crypto on most of them. Sometimes it's
It's on Twitter it's
Crypto.
crypto33 Miggy. Yeah, it's a little different,
Okay.
a little more
But
complicated.
if you go onto
Someone
his
stole my name.
Instagram, you can find him, and you can kind of go there. But he does some online training sometimes too. You said you put together a program, so a wealth of knowledge in one human being. But we get to see you in your
Absolutely.
avatar, which is perfect.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. You look great. I
Great.
appreciate y'all.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and we hope we'll see you back again next week. And we are actually take a look on our YouTube to rewatch this episode. If there was anything that he went over that you kind of wanted to go back and listen to again, it'll be up there a little bit later tonight. And if any of you had any questions that you want to ask Miggy, I know Zaid had that question earlier. He might have some follow-up to it. If you want to chat with him before you head out, that would be great. And we thank you so much for coming on. And thank you for coming
was great.
to Crypto Steady.
Have a good one.
And
The outro.